And it so far has that success rate as well, even if they've only been able to get their hands on it once. 3-2-1 though, hovering over that one. And, you know, this is focusing on the denial right now. On the other hand, TDK, they've focused away Azingi's champion pool just a little bit. They've 3 jungle bans at him, and with the Jace lock-in, it's sort of like they're not really playing what they're comfortable with. They're playing what they think their opponents will be uncomfortable with.
Yeah, and I really don't like that. They're sort of not trying to fit their own style, but instead trying to just counteract TDK style. Arc second is, I mean, Big Ol' Ron and Arc second, because it's a flex pick. I think I saw Arc second play it more like in their rank 5s when we were doing our scouting for these guys, play it more. But they're not going to be as experienced on it as Kyle. In that situation, it might be better to focus on a higher priority pick as their first pick and ban out the Jace. But we'll have to see if it works for them. They might make me eat my words and just absolutely carry with Jace. But
it's a little curious, though. You'd think that if they do send that against Kyle, he has so many games playing that champion, he knows exactly how to play against it as well. So it could be for Big Ol' Ron, but then there you go, the Riven Hover right now, as well as the Aurelia, which is still up. He had great success on that last time around. I wouldn't be too surprised if they do take it, but they're switching around just a little bit here. Graves, they don't need to take an AD carry just yet because Corki's already locked in.
Yeah.
Not really sure what 3-2-1's plan here is.
There's so many, you would think at this stage right now they'd want to pick one of those higher priority picks like Aurelia or Lissandra or Kassadin, but there's so many open, Rumble as well, that they're thinking we need to wait and see what they're going to do before we make a choice to pick, because they don't want to pick a high priority pick and then get counter-picked with another high priority pick. They want to make sure that they cover all their bases, so there's just no reason to pick anything of great value right there. Kassadin's still on the table. Aurelia's still on the table. Rumble's still on the table.
I think you can definitely go for the Aurelia in this situation and do the same matchup as last time against Seraph. It really was a huge boon for Big Ol' Ron.
The one thing that they have to realize, though, is that they'd be heavily focused on attack damage, and they'd have to put a Zingy onto a jungler that's very magic damage heavy, and there's just not too many left on the board right now. I mean, I guess he could go with the Elise, but I just haven't seen a Zingy play Elise ever. Oh, Gnar left open, and we completely forgot about Gnar. I was thinking,
yeah.
There's usually a ban that we see. Like, how can they ban 3 junglers like this? 3 second-tier junglers, Fiddlesticks, Pantheon, and Vi, focusing all to Zingy. Those are the 3 champions that he plays the most. He actually picks Fiddlesticks, and then Vi, and then Pantheon, usually in that order, as his high priority picks, which is like opposite of other junglers who usually go like Jarvan, Lee Sin, and Elise.
But we forgot about his other pocket
The jungle
pick.
Karthus.
We get to see the jungle Karthus. We haven't seen this since St. Vicious pulled it out in the North American expansion tournament. And that will be locked in. You know, I think it works fairly well in this composition. They have some split damage now. They already have a tank in Gnar. And there you go. And best part, he doesn't have to leave the jungle if he wants to gank.
Yeah, so we talked about how Aurelia is a comfort pick for Big Ol' Ron, and he carried really hard in the last game, but he's still just as good as Gnar, and Gnar is actually just more consistent and stronger of a champion right now overall. And I was thinking they're going to be so AD focused right now if they have to pick an AD jungler. They're forced into something AP in the jungle to give them a little bit of damage diversity. And Azingi is probably one of the best jungle Karthus in the world because he has so much experience on it. He's been playing it for so long before jungle Karthus was even a thing. So I'm just really looking forward to this game. A little, not quite as comforty of a pick phase for 3-2-1, but still a lot of big choices. Uh-oh, and we totally forgot Seraph on Nidalee.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a throwback in a lot of ways with a lot of the picks that we are seeing, but the Nidalee has not come out too much lately. We have seen quite a lot of devastation with that champion, especially when Seraph gets his hands on it. And up against the Gnar, I think it's definitely not a terrible choice. If you're able to get in there and play it like an assassin before he goes into Mega Gnar form, it could be a very rough lane for Big Ol' Ron.
So we got a couple signature picks in here. The only thing we're missing is Kyle on the Jace, but this should be a really exciting matchup. Now, Seraph, when he came to North America, he made his climb with Nidalee, and he was touted as being just a fantastic top-lane Nidalee player. He can carry super hard on it. But we just haven't seen Nidalee played as much in competitive play. So we'll have to see how much success he's going to have against Gnar. Now, Gnar usually is really great at punishing like melee top laners, but Nidalee is sort of the same way. So we'll have to see how this matchup is going to work. And while Karthus is a good jungler, sometimes he's susceptible to being shut down. But if there's anybody that you want on that champion, it's going to be a Zingy.
Yeah, he certainly knows that inside and out, and you know, we've seen it being used in the past, in more recent past as well, to pretty solid success. And they might be a little bit squishy outside of the Gnar. It's a little bit dependent on the timing windows, but 3-2-1 is a very patient, a very timing-oriented team. Although they're in a little bit of trouble early on here. Big ol' Ron finds that Nidalee. Can't quite contest too much just yet, so a little bit of some ward placement up in the top side. Team Dragon Knight's gonna get this one off to a aggressive start, to say the least.
Nidalee, more than any other champion in the game, has the most potential to get level 1 kills.
Yeah, especially with the new updated, I guess it's not so new anymore, but her rework did allow her to be more in line with the other Transformer champions, to be able to go Cougar form, jump on somebody from a distance that quickly. And combine that with the fact that you also have traps, it really is a lot of utility at the very early levels.
Yep. There's a lot of Transformer champions in this matchup right now. Gnar, Jace, Nidalee. We're missing Elise. Very well could have been picked too by Kez.
One of these days we'll get a full Transformer comp. Yeah, Zingy on this Karthus. I want to see exactly where he passed out, how far he goes, because we will see that Requiem being used as either a kill secure tool or just a way to scare Team Dragon Knights off of an objective. I mean, very good objective control that last game for 3-2-1. They admittedly got very ahead and were able to use that very much to their advantage, but this time around we'll see if they can repeat it, or will Team Dragon Knights be able to answer back strong? Lanes all around, I would say, for TDK especially, to be able to deal, but just 3-2-1 start with the early roams.
3-2-1, we've said it before, definitely have some of the strongest early games in this tournament out of any other team. I think in every game that they've played so far, they've had a lead by 10 minutes, which is pretty impressive. I think we've seen 6 matches from them so far, or a couple in the round of 16, 3 yesterday in the round of 8, and 1 already today. And pretty impressive score for them to always be able to get early leads. Translating that into a victory has been a little bit tough, but
their quicker games seem to be the much better ones when they do start snowballing. They're that kind of team that can be proactive when they have enough of a lead early enough to start styling on the enemy team. But you're right, they have had problems in the past stalling out, and a lot of challenger teams do have this issue of, oh, well, we're not really sure where we're going to go, so we're going to sort of stall for a little while and see if we can get stronger later, and a lot of times that just ends up giving up leads that they already had.
Insert generic North American indecisive challenger player.
Exactly. But not last game. They were able to find the openings and continually punish Team Dragon Knights. Here it is a much more even start to this game. No action just yet, but that is how both of the teams do like to play. A little bit of a conservative start from both sides. And Seraph dangerously close to Mega Gnar right up there in the top lane. And this is a lane I want to keep my eye on, because we saw a lot of, not solo kills, but essentially failed gank attempts last time around. Ooh, Jackstar, though, he's caught down in the bot lane. Conquan is the one that's eating most of the damage, though. Louis GG just can't quite get close enough to abuse him. And Jackstar, with the better positioning, comes up ahead in the trade.
Not by much, though. Neither of these supports has sustain, so trading is going to stick. So coming out on top of trades is really beneficial in a lane like this. Now, Jaina Graves is one of the best lanes for trading just because of how much burst damage Graves can put out. Sometimes he can get unanswered trades, and a Jaina shield empowered buckshot is really powerful.
Oh, whoa, whoa, a Zingy just making some big plays early on. First blood is going to go over to 3-2-1. Indivisible picks that one up, the secured auto attack kill. But it's on to Conquan. Louis GG still going to stick around for a little bit of farm.
It's a good first blood, but not necessarily the best target to have that on. They got it on Conquan, so Louis XGG is still not going to fall far behind in farm. The first blood went on to Indivisible, so not the greatest target, but I mean, you can still see right now 3-2-1 already has 1,000 gold lead, which is it's just sort of what they do. They just get ahead in lanes, which is just a really good strength of their team. As Zingy focuses on bot lane, which is a huge way that they get ahead a lot, because it's easier with more players down the bot lane. You can more easily pick up ganks and There's so many paths that you can gank the bot lane from.
Well, and they also trust the solo lanes quite a lot, and Big Ol' Ron is, really repaid that trust with some serious outplays this game. It's a little bit more even right now. He's not on the Aurelia, but the Nara, as you mentioned, was definitely a much better fit for the composition. Nartelli ganks can be pretty deadly even if he doesn't build a single damaging item, although he's already got himself a sword. Oh, there we go. In mini Nara form, Seraph looks to try and execute, but can't quite do it. Big Ol' Ron will hop away to the safety of his tower. Now Louis GG finding Indivisible in his path to try and get back here. Smite was down as Azingi's made some moves. Teleport on in, and the backside, Jackstar incredibly low, looking for Conquan, but he's down. Louis GG finishes him off, and Azingi into tower range. Kina is there to try and make the play, but he evaporates as well.
All right, well, a 2-for-1 trade. Both teleports blown from the top lane. So, or sorry, 2-for-2 trade. Okay.
Yeah, Azingi was pretty squishy there, and a little bit of a misplay, I think, on both sides. It was just sort of a wonky gank attempt that the stakes just kept raising on, and Arcsecond and Kyle are like, all right, I guess we'll just keep farming in the middle. But meanwhile, Team Dragon Knights showing why they are called the Dragon Knights. This time, they are the ones starting off this dragon, had the positioning to do it. They should be able to polish it off, and they've already got 100% more dragons than they did last game.
That's very true. And with the jungler going down for 3-2-1, it opened up the opportunity for them. There's not really they don't really have that strong of like an early game Dragon Comp. Karthus actually is pretty good at it, but he sort of needs a blue buff to be able to do it effectively. Once again, Azingi focusing heavily on that bot lane, and it's not working out quite as well as it did last game. They still hold on to a gold lead, but the stats worth the gold that's weighted into the stats of the dragon actually plays a big part in it. So it's probably about even right now as far as power level goes for these guys, despite the small gold lead for 3-2-1.
Yeah, and you mentioned how Azingi needs the blue buff to be able to take out Dragon and do a lot of other objectives too. It looks like 3-2-1 kind of puts a lot of their eggs in the Gnar basket with this composition, that they need him to be in Mega Form to soak. That limits their timing windows significantly to make plays here. And although they are very good at those timing windows, it's a big limiting factor in this game. And if TDK can abuse that, they can very much punish 3-2-1 more often than not.
Yeah, one thing to note here, though, is Seraph starting to lose his advantage in this lane. So they really need to focus on him, because a Nidalee that doesn't have an advantage in a lane or that isn't strong in lane is not going to transition well into like teamfight phase. Because if Big Ol' Ron can answer Seraph's split push or just be able to stand up to Seraph in lane, a Nidalee just loses a lot of value as a pick.
Yeah, now they're going to try to pick
This is
off Big Ol' Ron here. Oh, Spear not going to connect in there. Kez reveals. They're going to try to find him going all the way in, and he does manage to pick up the kill. Seraph with the Spear to try and secure it was not required. Jackstar now in a little bit of trouble on the bottom side. Louis GG and Conquan giving him a hard time. And that is, aside from the dragon play, that's kind of Kez's first big move on the map, and he's kind of been relatively quiet up until now.
Oh, but top lane, Kez was able to hold on to the Dragon Rage, so...
Yep, he's going to use it on Azingi right now, and that's going to prompt Seraph to just pounce on him, taking him down. Azingi does not have a lot of sustain on that Karthus, so they will be able to pick another kill up and move on away.
It's hard to see where this gold lead is coming from for 3-2-1. They have 300 gold lead despite being down in kills, and no, look at the CS. The only person who has more CS
is they have more gold. I don't understand.
I guess it's just Azingi. He's farming the jungle a little bit more efficiently than Kez.
I guess that's got to be it.
Yeah, so...
Well, the gold's a little deceptive too now, as you mentioned. The dragon, since it no longer gives global gold, you've got to rely on the buffs, which are not as tangibly viewable by the gold numbers, and it kind of makes it so that it looks very even, but TDK, slight edge in that regard.
So moving into this mid game, we have to look at where the strengths lie with both teams. There's going to be Power Spike down in that bottom side for Corki once he finishes Trinity Force. He's actually got a little bit of a disjointed build now, so that Power Spike's going to be delayed. He went with a pickaxe on his first back instead of trying to get like a Phage and then pieces of a Sheen or something.
Yeah, really, really odd. Not really sure why.
Don't even know where that pickaxe is going to fit into.
Yeah,
I guess
if it's like a last whisper, it's
eventually
like,
it's probably going to be an Infinity Edge.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, but I don't know why he wanted to go with that as opposed to finishing up the Phage. It was a really questionable decision, but...
Well, I think he got it as his first item, so he backed and he probably had like 900 gold, and he went with the pickaxe instead of going for like a Ruby Crystal longsword.
Well, that was about the time that they needed to jump in down bot and make a play, and it might have just given him enough damage to get the kill. So we'll see if that ends up burning him or not going forward. Lanes are definitely starting to trend TDK's way for the most part. Farm is staying relatively even. Well, not up in the top lane, I suppose. Big ol' Ron is still in Mega Form, scaring Seraph away, but they are keeping relatively even pace despite that. Ooh. Big spear shot, though.
Yikes.
That's starting to hurt. And Kez is going to find a Zingy. The Wall of Pain is down, and he spends the Dragon Rage kick. Seraph in the back. They're going to make a Zingy's life a little bit hard, but he will be able to polish off Kez. Big ol' Ron in tower range, and a couple of close shaves net a few kills for 3-2-1.
And maybe even a little bit of miscommunication there from TDK, because they had opportunity to just kill a Zingy and then get out alive, but Seraph was so focused on taking down Big ol' Ron that they had like this disjointed attack. And Zingy got the surprise factor on, and that's the good thing about Karthus, or a good thing for Karthus. Oh, Jackstar could be in trouble.
Flash Flay. Jackstar has to burn his own flash, but Indivisible now. They switch targets right away. Wards down immediately. Flash and heal to keep him alive. Jackstar's going to try to turn it around, but they got quite a lot of summoners out of that engage, and TDK should be happy about that.
And they used Conquan's flash to be able to get the flash from Jackstar and Indivisible, so it's an even trade. Both top laners had teleport, but they just didn't have a really great positioning for that teleport. They couldn't get in with a good flank, and teleport probably would have just been wasted.
Yeah, not too many open opportunities, but the Dragon will be coming up in just a bit. Current scoreline, Team Dragon Knights have the only one on the board. Kez nearly getting caught, but Conquan will pull him to safety. A Zingy showing face around this Dragon Pit to try and grab a little bit more vision control, but Kez is also there. This might be our first big team fight, our first full team fight. So there was a really oddball skirmish down bottom earlier, doesn't quite count.
Ron putting on the hurt. This is a very volatile top lane matchup, though. Both these players going heavily offensively. Hexringer is picked up for Big ol' Ron, but...
Oh, a Zingy. He is a little bit low. Will smite the red buff just to try to cover his tracks, but Kyle is here. They lock him up. Frozen Tomb teleport in. It will be a little bit late, though. Here's Big ol' Ron in Mega Form. Maybe they can make something happen. The Requiem comes out to try to polish off Seraph. Not quite enough. They found Kyle, though. Indivisible. Kez picks him off, and this is actually working quite well so far for TDK. It is a 1-for-2 trade, but they are blinking health bars. Got to be so careful. Oh, Louis GG. This could change any minute now. Big ol' Ron is going forward. There we go. Arc second knocked back, played, and then hooked into tower range nearly, but everyone's blinking. That is going to be Arc second going down as Zingy is respawning, and no one will really have control of this one. A crazy back and forth fight.
And nobody dies from TDK. Just a really rough fight for 3-2-1. And it's hard when you're the one who are trying to like close in on a member who gets caught on your team. Like Zingy went down super early. Of course, Karthus, I mean, I guess he does a little bit when he's dead, but really all he had was the Requiem, and it just didn't do much. There's so much mobility on this TDK team that they're just able to get away once they got that pickup, and 3-2-1 chased too far. So really great pickup by TDK. They're still down a little bit in gold, but of course, like we said, you factor in that one Dragon to 0 lead that they have, and it's probably about an even game.
Yeah, with the Dragon now being live too, this is going to be a big up for grabs. TDK are starting to motion in that direction. There's really no reaction right now, but the ward is down, so they see it happening, and they're starting to make moves that way. Seraph, though, kind of trying to distract Arc Second and a Zingy. The Dragon going very low. Alan Gale over the side, not going to be nearly enough to pick that one off. A very tough call to try anyways, and TDK pick up another Dragon. 2-0 on the game.
A pretty big deal as well. Dragon is a really great tool to help you come out on fights.
Jackstar, what is he doing? A little far forward, quick draw. Wait a minute, blown away. Louis GG, though, has way too much of a health bar for them to evaporate him that fast, and now Exhaust is on Indivisible. They hook him in. You're not going anywhere. A double kill for Team Dragon Knight's bot lane.
Yeah, and That's just, he tried his best to try and dodge some of those rockets from Lewis XGG, but even without Trinity Force being completed, there's still just a big spike there for Corki with Sheen and with Phage that Jackstar hasn't even completed the Infinity yet. So even though there's a little bit of burst, if whichever team pretty much gets the jump in that bottom lane is going to come out on top. And TDK just making big moves all across the map, taking a turret in the mid lane as well. It's looking like they're the ones who are in control of this match.
And this is a little bit more of the indecisiveness that we've come to know 3-2-1 by this time around. They let the pace be dictated to them. They are a little bit more comfortable doing that, but they're behind at this point. They've given up the 2 dragons where they had perfect control of it last time around. Now Big Ol' Ron back to fighting with Seraph, but what he doesn't know is Kez is there. Chilling Smite is on. He's going to have to burn his flash to get out of range of the Sonic Wave. And he will dodge and dash away, but they're burning summoners every time this happens. It's just looking like they're a much more panicked team than they were last time.
For sure, and we haven't really seen 3-2-1 have much success when they're behind. I don't really recall a time when they were behind in a game and were able to come back and win. So we'll have to see how well they do playing from behind. Momentum, at least as far as games go, is in their favor. Because they did win that first game, and it was really decisive, and it was probably one of the best performances that we've seen 3-2-1 in a very long time.
It was very, very decisive. And, you know, a lot of that, I think, had to do with the comfort level of the champions they picked. This time, there's still a little bit of that. Azingi being, you know, the kind of the heart and soul, the heartbeat of this team on a champion he's very comfortable with, but they just haven't quite executed the way they've wanted to, and TDK is finding the better angles of engage.
I definitely agree with that. Uh-oh, Kez coming around in this top lane. Big ol' Ron.
He's got no flash this time. He's going to have to fight this. Chilling Smite's on. No, you don't get the hop. And they're going to just be able to pick him off. Kez, a 1-2 punch. Kick, dive, whatever you want to call it. They're able to take him out. Another pickup. And yeah, Kez has actually really been helping Seraph to bully this top lane. And I think Seraph is very appreciative of it. They can start pushing on this tower. They've dragged Azingi up there where he's not very comfortable going. The spot lane is being sieged down. Everything's really going Team Dragon Knight's way, and they need this win to get back into it. If they do win this one, it'll be 1-1 in this semifinal match. Turret goes down. Up top side, Louis GG going to get the Lantern to safety in the bottom as they're still pecking away at this tower. But Jackstar and Indivisible can't really get too close.
Yeah, well, I said it earlier. Nidalee just loses a lot of value as a pick if she's not getting ahead in lane, because that's just who she is. She split pushes. She has a really strong laning phase, really strong dueling potential. And if she doesn't have that, if they just let Big ol' Ron push around Seraph from the top lane, Nara just has so much more teamfight capability than Nidalee does, especially as the game progresses. So it's really important that Kez focuses heavily on that top lane. And in this game, he actually has the luxury of being able to do that. Kyle owning his own in the mid lane, and this game, his bot lane is ahead. So he really doesn't have to worry much else about the other side of the map. He just wants to make sure Nidalee stays relevant as this game goes on.
It's funny how the junglers kind of have a very opposite focus here. Azingi always loves to hang out on the bot side, else he tries to go towards the middle. And Kez doing the exact opposite this game, as you mentioned, to try and get Seraph ahead. So we haven't really seen the two junglers really interacting all that much this time around.
Wow.
And Seraph just finding out Azingi picks him off.
Whoa.
A double kill with the spear. Oh, the Lich Bane proc. And the Morello Namicon really paying dividends that time around. They should be able to start sieging this tower. Not the greatest timing for 3-2-1. Dragon is still a minute and a half away, though. They could contest it when they do come back on up, but they've lost a lot of ground on this bottom side.
Yeah, one of the downfalls of Karthus is that he's very susceptible to being shut down in his own jungle. If he gets caught out of position, he can go down really quickly. And if you're the Karthus team and you're not dictating the pace of fights, it's really hard to be able to utilize the passive of Karthus. If you get caught out, your death, your life after death, so to speak, it means nothing. You're right. And that he can't use Requiem, and then they just sort of are back to square one. So that's a really great pickup by TDK, who've really taken control of this match. And some of this goes back to the pick ban phase as well. I talked a little bit about it, how 3-2-1 picked away the Jace instead of banning the Jace away and taking a pick that they're more comfortable with. They opted to take a pick away from TDK, and it just doesn't seem like ArcSecond is as comfortable on Jace as Kyle. And he just hasn't really had a splash. I mean, it's tough to sort of shut down a Lissandra in lane, but I mean, Kyle can do it.
Yeah, he certainly can. It seems really strange that they focus so much on denying strong picks rather than getting some for themselves. And I do think that was a mistake in pick and ban, and 3-2-1 seemed to be paying the price for this time. And interesting to note that this is the second game in a row that we've had a very heavy influence that the pick ban has had on the actual game, kind of tilting it one way or the other. But still a lot of time to come back into this one. 3-2-1 just aren't reacting in time to really do much of anything here. Dragon is about to spawn. There it goes. But no one's in a position to really do much about it. 3-2-1 looking to push down this middle. Small oversight from TDK, but they may not make it out alive here. It's a dangerous situation. Conquan being pushed a little bit further back, and all of a sudden, Seraph just finding another pick onto a Zingy. Indivisible should go down. Requiem is used, and they're all a little bit low here. Big ol' Ron might be able to find a kill, but he's all by himself, and I don't know if he's going to do it. No, Kyle lives again. 3 for none, and TDK are going to just go straight for Dragon. Health bars be damned.
And this is where Seraph really starts to come into his own here. Is able to assassinate the Zingy pretty much by himself.
It's like a two-shot, man.
A two-shot. I mean, a spear and then a leap and just a takedown there was just enough to kill him with that Lichbane proc. So TDK really just have so much control of this map. 3-2-1 were able to pick up a turret, and they're not too far behind, but they're 3 dragons down to 0. And they just aren't even able to even push that much or utilize Jace as a siege tool. Oh man, it's just looking pretty rough right now for 3-2-1. Fantastic play coming out from the Dragon Knights.
Yeah, they really have turned it around from their previous game and learned the lessons of really quick turnaround from them. Zingy, not very impressive on this Karthus. He just has been incredibly irrelevant most of the game, and he's spent more time dead than not, which would sometimes be a good thing for Karthus, but not in this situation.
No, definitely not. The one thing to take away is that he's got double the farm right now of Kez. He hasn't really taken much farm from the lane, so that's just strictly him being really on top of his jungle timers and being really efficient with his jungle clear. But how much is that going to play into it? He has a lot better scaling than Lee Sin, like a lot better.
Well, he's just tried to stay relevant. I mean, this is the thing. They need to hold out until they can get to that higher end point, but there's still some pretty strong scaling on the side of the Dragon Knights, and they've got a solid lead besides.
Yeah.
Whoop. Find Kyle, but he's going to get on out of there. Glacial path for the escape. Another thing we didn't talk about so much is the mobility of TDK. They're really hard to catch, every single one of them.
Oh yeah, I mentioned it a little bit earlier on. It allowed them to do a lot of the things that they did early on with finding cheeky ways to gain advantages. And it's helped them. Like we saw that fight down on the bottom side where they picked off a Zingy and were just able to get out alive because of their sheer mobility. But in the Zingy, he will die and then run back in and try and farm his jungle and then try and make something happen and then die again. And as efficient as you can be with your jungle farm, he's having trouble piecing together a full item. He has his tier, which is stacking quite well, so he'll be able to pick up Saris. And
ooh, speaking of Saris,
didn't even see that one. It happened so fast.
Yeah, if he picks up a Seraph's Embrace, wouldn't that be weird that Seraph is in the game?
It would be weird. Seraph Embrace.
He just wants a hug from Italy.
It's a sign.
Something that would hurt.
Yeah, he's been hugging people. He's given about 6 hugs so far today.
Jeez. That's about all the damage he's been doing. All right. So TDK looking for any angle they can really just keep pushing in here, but it's just sort of an elongated siege on multiple fronts. So actually they're pushing pretty far forward with Louis GG and Conquan, but this wave should evaporate. Actually have to be extremely careful. No Lantern taken, but he Valks away. Big ol' Ron incredibly low, but he gets a perfectly timed passive to transform into Meganar. Turret is taken in the middle, and now they've caught Indivisible on a hook.
Oh,
maybe
no.
they can take him down. Oh no, here comes Arc second though. Big shutdown, 3-2-1. Might have a chance to get back into this one. Requiem was used by a Zingy as he goes down, and they've got Louis GG. Maybe they can find more here. Arc second causing some havoc in the back line. They knock back Kez, staying alive. Kyle though, littlest of health bars, and he stays alive. Seraph as well. They've got 2 members down, but he is still in the front, scaring them away, and that could have been a far worse fight for Team Dragon Knights.
Yeah, that was a couple of those members got out by the skin of their teeth there, and that's really risky to go into that turret when you don't have as great of a hard engage type composition. it's a little bit weird of a team comp for them to try and make it through this part of the game. They have okay hard engage with Lissandra, but they just don't have much follow-up. They need to sort of find a balance between making use of Italy as either a split pusher or a poker or a sieger, and then find a way to find an engage on their terms when they get a little bit of chunks out of these health bars. But it's really hard to do against a team comp like this that can capitalize on you overextending with Gnar and with Karthus. And that's exactly what happened there. And Seraph was able to pick up that turret in the mid lane, but they didn't really gain much else out of that engagement.
Yeah, TDK, they are ahead. They're kind of playing with their lead here. They've been able to grab a couple towers on top of it just by pushing 3-2-1 around the map, but they're staying resilient. They've not let the gold lead extend too far ahead. What they really need to do is get out of their comfort zone and start trying to contest objectives. The dragon is about a minute to spawn, and they really need to deny it. There's 3 dragon buffs to none. It's polar opposite of what happened last game, 3-2-1 controlling the full dragons in that one. But TDK are the ones who are in position to make all the plays, and you know, we may be in for another one-sided match. It so far has been that way, but 3-2-1 under tower seem to be doing all right holding out.
TDK doesn't have as big of a lead and as big of a like a power spike at this stage in the game than 3-2-1 did in the last one. But from what we've seen of these two teams, TDK seems to have a lot easier of a time closing out games when they have a lead. And they seem to have a little bit better of comfort picks in this situation, which can help you in closing out games. Because the more you win on a certain champion, the more you realize how you won in that situation.
It's very true. Seraph getting chased away just a little bit. So the game's kind of settled down here, and they've sort of relaxed off. TDK in position again to start up this dragon. They have crab control. There is no vision on it. 3-2-1 just aren't in any sort of position to contest this, and they're giving up more ground again with this dragon. This would be number 4 for the Dragon Knights, and it looks like it will be going over to them completely uncontested.
Wow. So four dragons is actually a pretty big deal.
To 0 especially.
To 0. Because you're getting all those buffs and those bonuses while your opponent has none. And it gives them closer. They actually picked up all 3 of their last dragons. Well, most of their last dragons were picked up like within a minute of spawn. So this is a really quick timing for picking up the 4th dragon. And this opens up an opportunity for them to time their 5th dragon around taking Baron as well because of their lead right now, which we talked about it a lot yesterday. 5 dragon buff, that temporary buff that provides, plus the Baron, is just so tough to deal with. Because the enemy team can take out turrets and buildings just so quickly. They get double the bonuses, plus the powered minions. Their fight potential is just so high at that stage.
Indivisible just runs on by. Oh, I'm not supposed to be here. Flashes the wall. Before TDK really does anything about it. Yeah, 3-2-1 are fighting to get back into this, but they're not going where they need to go. They need to contest dragons. They need to try to grab vision outside of their own jungle, and you can just see the difference. And Arc Second, at this point on Jace, should be doing far more damage than he just did with that full frontal shock blast to Louis GG. I mean, it tickled by comparison.
Louis GG has some really creative builds all the time. You don't even know what he's building until he builds it. Like I don't think he knows what he's building until he builds it. He went pickaxe first on Corki. And then he went, after he finished his Trinity Force, he got a longsword, so it looked like he was going towards Last Whisper. And then instead he picks up a BF sword and a Bilgewater Cutlass.
Yeah, I still have no idea.
Like I mean, he's going to build Last Whisper next, I'm sure, but Blade of the Ruin King, Corki, I think he just like buys whatever fits his goals the best when he goes back. Even on Callista yesterday, that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, and it seems to be working out pretty well for him in general. At this point, 5-1 in this game. He's been able to kite and poke quite well and pick off kills that way, but he can still get in your face. And look at this, to start this tower siege up, chasing Jackstar away, the hook threatening. TDK is on the top side while the bottom split push continues. Again, Big Ol' Ron versus Seraph. But this time, Seraph is in a prime position to pick this one off. Ooh, Big Gnar against the wall, and he might actually go down here. He's stunned up. Big CC train! And Big Ol' Ron with the timing.
That was beautiful.
Really well done, and I don't think Seraph expected that much damage over that much time. Here goes Azingi, though. He's caught up. The kick back. Indivisible pretty low. Kez going in, getting out. The Requiem is on, and that should pick him off. One shut down for one, and they will keep on trying to fight. Louis GG a little bit all in front, and he gets paid the price. Kyle is going to go Zanya's, but not in time to stay alive. Jackstar will pick him off with the buckshot. It is a 2 for 4. This time 3-2-1 coming out ahead.
I don't even care about that fight. That Gnar play was amazing.
That was pretty incredible.
He instead of focusing on damaging Seraph and trying to push him off the turret, he cleared the creep wave, used the Gnar into the wall just as the last creep died, spaced out his stuns just enough so Seraph didn't have time to even flash out of turret range. Just perfectly executed.
Whoa, and Seraph execute, speaking of.
Ooh.
Takes down Indivisible there. Teleport coming in. Big ol' Ron. They might want to make the play. This could be the one that gets them back in. Jackstar flayed in. Seraph is there. They're trying to kite it around. Zanya's is on. They get the hook, and he's going to get taken down by Conquan. Big ol' Ron, though, can't quite catch up to Seraph. He's going to settle for the support if he can. Big Gnar is going to come out here, dodges the hook, and he's just kiting around in Mega Gnar form, but Kez is there for the defense, and he can't quite make the pick.
Really great Zonya's time in there by Seraph. It's what kept him alive in that situation. And sort of what baited Jackstar into just getting a little bit too far forward. It was good kiting, but Seraph is just so huge at this point. It's so hard to take him down. And this opens up a Baron opportunity for Team Dragon Knights. And Azingi's not even going to be able to get in range in time enough to steal this. It's going down so quickly.
Well, he's so squishy, too. I don't think it'd be a really worthwhile attempt to steal that one. Team Dragon Knights will secure themselves the Baron. And again, this game, it's kind of starting to trend 180 degrees from the last.
I agree with that, and we'll see a Nidalee ban next game. This has been sort of the game of target bans. The match of target bans. So what can 3-2-1 do to get back in this? They've done a decent job of trying to defend against Siege, and it seems like they have a good type of like counter-engage type composition. They can punish overextension with the wall of pain from Azingi, and Gnar being able to use an ultimate into like turrets or walls. So they can punish bad positioning, but it doesn't seem like TDK is giving up much. And even in those bad engagements, they still have enough mobility to be able to get out of those fights. So
they need to capitalize when they do take a fight. They need to take a fight around the time that they can grab something, whether it be a dragon or a tower. They've only got one tower this game, remember, but this is what TDK is not giving up. They're only taking fights on their own terms. And
one turret.
When I'm under towers, yeah.
They're not really letting 3-2-1 breathe. Even though they haven't been able to push their lead as much, Seraph is constantly applying pressure to the map. Conquan, he's constantly applying pressure to the map. So these guys, they're not letting up, which is a big deal when you're going for this. And now this is that big combination that I talked about. They still have some time left on their Baron buff. They're picking up this 5th dragon, doubling all their other bonuses. So they're going to be able to have so much pushing power right now. I don't know if 3-2-1 is going to be able to deal with this.
Yeah, this is the time when you just start muscling on in and pushing your way to victory. They don't have the hugest of waves built up on this bottom side, but everyone from 3-2-1 is going to have to back and deal with it, and that's about as many buffs as you can get in this game right now. That tower so incredibly low, they could just go in and knock it over, but they're going to be methodical about it, waiting for the right time. It's already down, 3-2-1. Nowhere to really run. They're already inside their base, and they're not defending. Look at the damage that they're putting out.
That's
on this inhibitor.
One Lich-Bane powered auto attack did a quarter of that inhibitor's health.
Yeah, they just take it pretty much for free there. They can move up to the top side and do it all over again. Seraph actually going to just say, hey, we can tank this tower and try to make the play on it, but actually going to take a little bit more time about that one. And up in the top side, minions will be able to grab that tower for 3-2-1, a little bit of gold in their pockets, but it's such a consolation prize at this point. Team Dragon Knights still pushing forward with the Baron buff and the 5th dragon. Now this tower its days may be numbered.
Baron buff is gone, so that's one thing that 3-2-1 can breathe a sigh of relief about, but that 5th dragon buff is still active. The Dragon Knights really living up to their name right now. Kez is looking for some cheeky plays around the side.
He was a little bit caught inside the base. He has to escape from this one. The tower is still getting poked out, but it's kind of a dangerous game now. There's no minions just yet. They don't have any waves pushing in another direction, too, so this is not the greatest window of opportunity for TDK to have that, but they are making the best of it, trying to push this one in. If 3-2-1 can counter-engage, it'll be great. But Azingi, already incredibly low, can't really get involved in this one. And he needs it. Kyle coming on in. He just picks off Azingi, and all of a sudden they start blowing people up. Exhaust is down on Luigi G, and ArcSecond will take him out. But that is just one for the 3 they've already managed. Inhibitors down. Big ol' Ron in Mega form. But TDK have already got 2 inhibitors, and they can start moving around the top.
Yeah, they've broken that shell quite heavily here, and even though that team fight didn't go as well as they would have wanted to, they won't be able to end the game off that push. They still had take an even trade, take out the second inhibitor. Only 4 turrets remain total for this 3-2-1 squad, and it looks like they are losing control of this game very, very quickly.
10,000 gold behind at this point, certainly not going to do you any favors, and their minions have really been the only ones to make a move on the map in the last 5 minutes or so. Really, really rough game right now for 3-2-1, and you asked the question, what can they do to come back? At this point, it does seem like there is such little opportunity to do it. They've given up everything on the map to Team Dragon Knights. They've not grabbed any control. They're not just playing reactive. At this point, they're not reacting at all.
Sort of just sitting back and just letting TDK have their way with this game, and that's not what you got to do.
Yeah, and when you're so far behind, it's hard to make these plays, but they're not even attempting them at this point. They're barely grabbing bits of their own jungle here. A little bit scared that they will not be able to stay alive. Azingi, though, he's caught out trying to grab his blue buff, and Kez will pick him off. They pull in big ol' Ron. They take out Jackstar. They're looking for Indivisible as well. Incredibly low on this one. A big Gnar comes out to try and take someone down, but they only find Kez, and they lose 3 members. Without 2 of their inhibitors, this could be a dire situation for 3-2-1.
If they want to have anybody up, it's probably going to be ArcSecond in this situation, but I don't think they'll be able to defend against this. 2 waves of super minions pushing in. They still have Louis XGG up, and who's tearing through these turrets. ArcSecond's going to try and have a last-second defense here.
No, won't be able to stay alive. Indivisible nearly keeps him, though, with the Monsoon, but one Nexus turret fired down. The other is soon to follow. Indivisible, the only one up. It's still 5 seconds till anyone on TDK, but it's too late. That's game number 2 with the ace, and Team Dragon Knights make it a 1-for-1.
Bringing this one to a game number 3, and we were sort of talking about how are the Dragon losing a game. In the first game in the series, that was the first game they've lost in this entire tournament since the round of 16. They went 2-0 and then 2-0. Coming in that first game of this best of 3, they lost, and it was a pretty rough loss to take. But they come back. It was a little bit of a harder fought game for them, but they never seemed to let up. They didn't give 3-2-1 any room to breathe. And Seraph really impressed me on that Italy play. There's a reason why a lot of teams banned that out against him.
Yeah, and really it came down to not just the comfortable picks that they were able to pick up, somewhat unorthodox as well. This time it worked out quite well for the Dragon Knights, but as well as all that, the Dragon Control was incredibly potent.
Oh, yeah.
5-0. The opposite +1. What they were able to have accomplished last time. They got the only Baron of the game as well, helped them siege up the towers, and even if they didn't have the greatest siege in the world, they were able to accomplish exactly what 3-2-1 was last time and just shove it in. So we've had 2 games that have spiraled out of control and eventually gone on to the inevitable conclusion. But this third one, this is for all the marbles. This is who goes home with only $2,000 and who progresses to at least $4,000 into picks and bans right now, and it will be a finalist announced after this game.
Interesting to see how picks and bans has evolved. TDK probably going to stick with the exact same strategy. Azingi didn't have that great of game on Karthus. He actually had an okay start, being able to pick up a couple successful ganks down the bottom lane early on, but he just wasn't high impact enough, and TDK seems to have a lot of confidence in being able to deal with that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go with 3 of the same bans, and of course going with it right away. And this time 3-2-1, just go ahead and ban out the Jace. They don't have first pick this time. They cannot guarantee it. So this is 3-2-1 going back with what they went with the first game with their bans, and TDK going with what they went with their win with the picks and bans. So
yeah, and also the focus is incredible here. 4 jungle bans, the 3 on TDK again targeted at Azingi, the 2 mid lane bans, well, I guess you could say there's a bit of flexibility there, but for the most part targeted against Kyle.
Corki seems to be the catalyst in victories this far. Corki actually has quite a higher win rate over the course of the ESL Pro Series than Graves, which seem to be the two sort of main AD carries. I'm waiting for Callista. Jackstar doesn't seem to be a Callista player, though.
But Luigi G does. They could send Corki mid. That's a possibility. It's not really Kyle's style.
No.
I don't think they'll really do that, but it's been a contested pick in the past. We might see if they do win this series, we might have that possibility going forward. I do like the Jarvan takeaway, though. Azingi looked fairly comfortable on that when he played it yesterday, and he wasn't able to get his fiddlesticks. Also, Indivisible on Thresh. Not terrible. I think he's a bit better on Janna, but they need somebody a little bit more sustainful this time around.
Yeah, Thresh and Nami are his two sort of main supports. It seems to be what he goes for the majority of the time. And they're able to pick up the Jarvan this time, like you said. It got picked away from them since they went with that questionable choice of first picking Jace last game instead of just banning it away. That's going to be a big deal because I know that Azingi's, even though Karthus is one of his signature champions, it more fits his style for solo queue, and he didn't have a good game on it. I think he's going to be a lot happier picking up the Jarvan for this game.
Yeah, and the Kassadin was left on the board as well. We didn't really mention that too much. Arc Second should be pretty happy with that pickup. Also, Kez, very, very proficient on the Lee Sin. It kind of took him a little bit longer to get rolling than we might expect. He waited until about level 4 or so to start ganking, but once he showed up, he was pretty much a threat in every lane. And, you know, he didn't really visit bottom as much, but he kind of trusted his dual laners to make the plays that they needed to. Eventually, they just kind of snowballed that on ahead, and Kez was a huge part of that. So, on Lee Sin again this time, should be in a pretty comfortable position. And TDK yet to pick up their mid laner or their top laner. We'll have to see what they do here. Gnar was left open as well.
So almost every AD carry has either picked Graves or Callista or Ezreal, those three, if Corki is picked away. Corki seems to be the highest priority, and then those three.
Yeah.
Lucian, I don't think we've seen him at all.
I don't believe so, no. Yeah, Jackstar would be the first Lucian in the tournament that we've been broadcasting since yesterday.
So I'm curious to see why that is that Jackstar said, you know what, I don't really want to go with the Graves anymore. I'm going to go with the Lucian instead.
Well, it's a lifesteal lane. I mean, it's something that they that used to be a fairly, very strong thing. It still is a very strong thing, and it's really just that Lucian is...
Hookspark.
Oh, you're right, he did. So we did see one. But it's not been as common of a choice.
Yeah. Glad we remembered that.
Oh, yeah.
From our heads.
Yep.
But still, it seems to be like a secondary choice for a lot of these AD carries. And since Azingi focuses a lot of his ganks on the bottom lane, maybe the follow-up potential for those ganks, they really want to sort of go with their style and get ahead early. But again, this is almost, it's very similar to their composition early on without the fiddlesticks, but Jarvan sort of fits a similar vein in that regard, even though they seem like really different champions. They sort of fit a similar style.
There's still a lot of comfort going on here, though.
Oh, so much.
3-2-1, Big Ol' Ron's going to get a hold of Aurelia. They did leave that open because Seraph preferred the Lissandra. But Zed picked up for Kyle, though.
Yeah, this is a very similar team comp to what TDK went with last time with the Corki and the Lee Sin and the Lissandra, and it worked out well. They seem to be very comfortable on it. Kez really outperformed Azingi in game number 2 with Lee Sin. So both of these team comps look really, really scary on paper. Now the thing is, these teams have very different styles, where TDK sort of is very proactive when they're ahead, whereas 3-2-1 usually plays a little bit more reactively when they're ahead. Both teams, 3-2-1 relies more on getting an early lead, where TDK is a lot more comfortable playing in a sort of even environment. A lot of comfort picks across the board, though, so I'm really excited to see.
Very true. I'm kind of excited for the mid lane matchup. It's going to be a little bit different. We haven't seen so many Zeds today. Obviously, we only had a couple of games prior to this one. It's a little different of a style than we really expect from Narakale, but we'll see how he's able to pull this one off. Very strong solo lanes once they get to that level 6 and on, but we should have a pretty quiet opener, as we have been. No shenanigans here, and everybody's making their moves in the same general direction, line of scrimmage there, as is usual with TDK and 3-2-1.
Dorn Shield start for Kyle, which is interesting. It seems like you want to go pretty aggressively earlier against a Kassadin to try and shut him down, especially when you're in a melee versus melee environment. And Kassadin doesn't necessarily generally rely on much auto attack damage early on for his harass.
30 seconds until minions.
So I wanted to see Kyle go with a little bit more aggressive build to try and shut down Arc Second earlier on, to reduce his power in that mid game, which we saw Cassidy get so far ahead in game number 1 on that champion. But we'll have to see how that's going to work out for him.
Yeah, a little bit of a deep ward attempt by TDK. Kyle doing the two-step with the shadow. Some fancy footwork already. The game hasn't even started.
Have we seen Kyle on Zed yet?
I don't believe we have.
All right. Well, it sort of fits.
He's gone Azir. He's gone Jace.
In my notes, I had him listed. I had him pegged as a Zed player. So
depth of his champion pool is yet to be completely tested out. But he should be fairly competent on that. I mean, everyone on TDK is very strong individually. They also play very well together, and I think that really is indicative of how well they've been able to succeed so far. 1-1 in this series now against 3-2-1. And honestly, 3-2-1 looked a lot more like what we expected to see from them in that previous game. Maybe not stomped on so hard, but the style that they were playing, the very conservative wait for the opening and then go in style, if it ever comes, is definitely more what we expect to see. That first game seemed a little bit different, and I would love to see them go back to that, but it seems like they only do it when they get really far out in front early on.
The Lifesteal lane is best played aggressively. I think the success of that lane early on heavily depends on you hitting level 1 or level 2 before your opponents.
And that didn't happen.
And that didn't happen. And I just don't like the way that Jackstar and Indivisible are playing this lane currently. But it still has a lot of potential for kills, but I really like the style of going aggressive at level 2, rushing down and hitting level 2 before your opponents, and trying to go for an early like hook play, utilizing Lucian's early spikes at like levels 2 and 3. They didn't do that, but we'll have to see how much success they're going to have in that lane despite that fact.
Yeah, Big Ol' Ron's also getting pushed in just a little bit too by Seraph, and that's kind of troubling for how comfortable he looked on Aurelia in game number 1. But 3-2-1 again, they're playing this very slow starting game, and will you look at that? Azingi making a move through the lane. See if he can't pull off a gank. Lantern coming on in. There we go. Flash immediately from Conquan. And Azingi will flag and drag in that general direction. They have the smite. They have first blood. And they will take it. It gets picked by Indivisible with the tick of Ignite.
Once again, it goes over to Indivisible, and that's a great thing, but this is exactly what happened last game. And it just didn't do much for their lane. They still came back and were behind, so we'll have to see if that's going to play into effect. I think Thresh can make a little bit better use than Janna of that first blood.
I think you're right. It's better to have Thresh to have a little bit more gold than a Janna, for example, but you really need to get your AD carry out in front. Jackstar needed that, or Azingi could have used it, and it's troubling. I don't think they even needed to use the Ignite. It was seemingly overkill. He wasn't really in a safe range at all.
Yeah.
Kez now making a move to get some vision on that blue buff. Big ol' Ron and Seraph will continue to trade a little bit out, but the mini wave is in favor of Ron right now, so Seraph has to back away from this one. Again, it's kind of reset, been a little bit more quiet as a result, and we won't see too much action until we have the solo laners starting to hit their ultimate spikes.
This is the exact same matchup that we saw in game number 1. And Big ol' Ron had a fantastic teleport in the mid lane, which picked him up 2 kills early. Unfortunately, that put Seraph far behind, but we'll have to see how he's going to fare in a more even lane matchup this time around. Big ol' Ron still, of course, we mentioned earlier, Aurelia, by far his most comfortable champion. And the champion that he's impressed me on the most. Seraph done it before today, so maybe he's got a little bit more confidence in going up against this matchup the second time around.
He just might. And now Kez is hanging around by this bottom side, more interested in the Krugs than he is in Jackstar or Indivisible right now. Very safe start, safe opening for 3-2-1. They're not really giving too many opportunities to TDK to get in their faces. Indivisible hanging out in this brush. And look at that, Azingi Back to lane. The ward is out. Indivisible is waiting for the time that he might pull the lantern, but TDK playing a little bit further back, and also Kez is here as well. This will be a 3v3 if it does happen. Oh, and in the middle, Kyle picks off Arc second, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The hook's on to Conquan. They're going to try to make something happen. Teleport coming in for Seraph, and they're going to try and bail out of this one. The Ice Prison, they've got it. Big ol' Ron teleporting in as well, but this looks so much better for Team Dragon Knights. Seraph, though, a little bit far forward, and he gives up the ghost. Big ol' Ron takes him down, but they get a double kill onto Louis GG, and that looks like the start of a dragon.
And a big advantage early on for TDK, and not only did they trade 2 for 1 in the bottom side, but somehow Kyle picked up a 1v1 kill on the Arc second in the mid lane. It seems like as soon as he hit level 6, he went aggressive, and that's what you have to do against Kassadin. Shut him down early on before he can get going. So not only does he have that CS lead, he's also got the kill lead. They pick up the early dragon. This is about one of the best early starts that TDK could have hoped for. Of course, they did give up that first blood down bottom, but once again, just like in game number 2, they're not fazed by it, and they come back swinging.
Yeah, and I went to Indivisible too. That gold could have certainly helped Jackstar to buy a little bit more, but he does have a BF sword, so he's not keeping too far behind. Down in CS though, versus Louis GG, and it really is troubling when a lane that is famed for being a strong bullying lane is unable to get ahead against a much more soft opponent with Corki and Nami. There's sustain there to deal with, but you'd think that wouldn't be too troubling. A lot of jungle interference, though, can mess with that. And right now, Zingy is still hanging around the bottom side of the map, but he's more interested in the river and maybe a little bit of counter-jungling.
You might try a more creative approach to this bot lane gank.
And the lane gank.
The lane gank. Every single time a Zingy plays Jarvan, and once teams start to get some scout information on him, they'll just realize this is what he does. He ganks bot through lane. That's just what he does. You think back to the expansion tournament when they were playing against... I don't even remember. I guess it doesn't matter because he does it every game. He just waits in that bottom brush and the bottom side of the map and tries to go for ganks. Uh-oh, Big ol' Ron, he's in trouble.
Kez has made his move up top as well, and I think Big ol' Ron's going to be secured. But wait a minute, Seraph really low, but they do take him out. The 2v1 this time, they can't make the outplay. Meanwhile, Indivisible Jackstar continue to try and look for picks, and Jackstar's caught up in farm here. So that's a hopeful sign for 3-2-1, but they're still a little bit on the back foot here. Top tower getting fired down pretty quick. They don't quite have the minion wave to finish it off just yet, but they should soon enough. Zingy actually heading up in uncharted waters up in the top side of the map.
Yeah, he's not used to this. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do on this side.
He is going to try and set up a pick onto somebody. This tower's already gone, though, and it's a 1v2 for just a second. Big ol' Ron's not quite there. As Zingy going to jump onto Kez, having to flash out of his own Cataclysm, and he bails out without getting anything for it, and he burns a Summoner and an ult.
Yeah, misses the EQ combo. A great dodge by Kez there. Has to use the flash, but is able to get out alive. Trades flash for flash in that situation. They do lose the turret in the long run, though, so TDK continues to increase their lead, and once again, they have a really strong mid lane. They have decent initiation, and they have a more well-rounded comp. Of course, they don't have that Italy as a comfort pick this time around, but they have a lot more tools at their disposal.
It's such an odd choice, though, of a Zingy to make that 1v2 call, and he's referred to as the master tactician, and that was just not an advisable choice in any way. Oh, they caught Louis GG on a line. Jackstar dodging out the Phosphorus Bomb, but Indivisible is the target right now. He throws down the box. Support and AD carry bruised up just a little bit, but Conquan has the heals.
Looks like Shiji loves this pickaxe first.
Yeah, I'm really curious that he does go for that. I mean, it's working out for him. He's 2-0 right now.
He delays his power spike, but it gives him more strength in the lane.
Uh-oh, Kez waiting in the wings. Might just be interested in Gromp, though. Now that he's not sure if he can get the dive off. There we go. It's a little bit of a ward out and spots a Zingy.
Yeah, 3-2-1's going to ping that one out, so they see that ward go down. So now they're even afraid to head into their own jungle here, and you could tell just how passively Jackstar and Indivisible are playing. And again, they did get the first blood, but they just haven't really been able to do much. It forces the flash out.
Oh, Jackstar! I don't know how much health he has, but it's not a lot.
Oh, and the teleport!
Not done yet. Seraph coming in. Jackstar, here we go. Blows him up right now. Indivisible is down as well, and Conquan picking the kill up. Seraph on a clutch teleport, coming up with a big W for his team, and around the back side of the tower.
And big ol' Ron is trying to roam down here a little bit, but he just came from base. He didn't have his teleport available just yet, and just not able to pick anything up, and just not having nearly as good of a game as he was in that first match. But he's waiting off to the wings here, but oh, sorry, that's his own ward, so not sitting on a ward. But he's
sitting on his own ward.
Sitting on his own
now he
ward.
walks through a ward.
Yeah.
Big old Ron, yeah, he's kind of trying to make the same sort of plays as Seraph. It's just not quite working out from this game, and he's on a comfortable pick, but it just seems they're a little bit scattered there. I feel like Kazingi's decision-making for his team hasn't quite been up to par with what they were at in the first game. 3-2-1, playing on the back foot this time around. Dragon spawns in about a minute. TDK is already setting up their vision control.
Yeah, Zingy, we've talked about it before, but one of his downfalls is that he's pretty indecisive with a lot of his moves. But
ooh, play back and the hook as well. It looks like they've caught Louis GG here. Jackstar, though, takes a lot of unnecessary damage in that engage, and it's going to be a little bit troubling if they want to try and contest this dragon pretty quickly. But Louis GG caught out on his own, and sometimes you get a false sense of security with a champion like Corki.
Yeah, especially when you're ahead. And they are able to pick up a turret in the mid lane. But they are going to give up that kill and the turret in the bot side. Zingy's had trouble making moves in this match. Big ol' Ron's had some trouble. Oh, but Kez, they were looking for a flank there, but they're not going to really find much of anything just yet.
I think they're just going to be happy to take this dragon since Jackstar and Indivisible went back. There's going to be no one here to contest this. And again, the huge oversight for 3-2-1. Where was the dragon control that they had in game number 1? So far, they've given up 7 uncontested dragons after this one over 2 games.
A lot of that has to come down with just... we said it earlier, 3-2-1 plays very reactively, so it doesn't seem like a lot of the time they try and set up dragons. They try and just get ahead early and make plays, and then the objectives are sort of just secondary.
Yeah, and so are the kills. It would seem they're going to try to get something. Indivisible, though, getting popped by Kyle. Here we go. Teleport coming in. Big ol' Ron takes down Kez. Kyle still targeted down. Focus the double kill for Big ol' Ron. Arc second, staying alive. Conquan immediately burning his flash to get out of harm's way. It is a 2-for-1 trade, but the dragon still in the pockets of TDK.
Yeah, I think that's still a victory for TDK. They get a little bit ahead of themselves, but if they were to pick up a kill here, that's going to be a victory. Jackstar is going to be able to escape that one, though. Yeah,
I think Louis GG should be able to polish off this tower, though. He wanted a little bit of revenge from earlier. Doesn't quite have the wave just yet. He should get there in time. Indivisible, though, also coming back down to defend the wave pushing in. So Jackstar's positioning a little bit questionable when he's not expecting to fight. A little curious that he's gone for that. But so far, him and Louis GG continue to trade back and forth relatively well.
This game is a little bit bizarre. Just in the fact that neither team seems to have a clear game plan. And it's similar to TDK's style in the last game as well. They don't have as big of a lead, so they can't just utilize their lead to overpower 3-2-1. And you can tell in that last engagement there after the dragon, they have great initial engage with Lysandra using Glacial Path and Frozen Tomb. But their follow-up is very... it's not quite what you'd want with Lysandra. Zed's great for taking out a single target, Lee Sin as well, and isolating. But if they can't clean up the fight early on, sometimes it can be a little bit tough for them to just close out a fight. We'll have to see, though. They've been utilizing their leads pretty well, and that was one of the things we praised TDK for yesterday and in their victory today. More so than other challenger teams, they seem to be able to play with the lead very well. We'll see if 3-2-1's going to give him trouble with this one.
TDK polishing off the final outer tower there. They've been able to break this wall 2 games in a row now, but Indivisible chasing on Louis GG's got the hook, but game senses a tingling instantaneous Valkyrie away. Save his life. Kez now coming around the side. Looks like this is about the point where TDK decides, all right, it's mid-game, boys. Let's start grouping up and grabbing ourselves some kills. Scouted out by the Sprite from the Merc Wolves.
Yeah, they're trying to make moves, and this is the big thing. We said it last game. They don't let their opponents breathe when they have a lead. They just keep putting pressure on the map. And it's something that, again, challenger teams sometimes struggle with, is trying to transition from early and mid game into late game, or trying to transition and turn leads into a win. I really like to see more teams that have a Zed utilize his split push potential a lot more. I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but a lot of these teams, they use Zed as, they try and keep Zed around for team fights, but Zed is so great in 1v1 situations and so great at just keeping teams' attention with his split push potential. You look at a lot of like the most successful Zed games from pro players in their history, and a lot of the times it's just because they roam around the map and put so much pressure on side lanes with their split push potential that nobody's able to deal with them with 1v1. They have to send 2 or 3 members just to be able to deal with it, and then the rest of their team makes moves across the rest of the map.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is kind of surprising this tournament especially. We haven't seen too many of those really high-profile split-pushing Zeds. A couple. But Kyle isn't really necessarily in a position to do it right now. It seems like everyone's kind of gone back to their lanes because they're not entirely sure what they want to do in this awkward mid-game. Again, everything seems to revolve around the Dragon. That's where everyone's been coalescing so far. 2 uncontested ones have been taken this game by the Dragon Knights, but not quite yet. Azingi gets caught, but he's tanky enough to stick around. Not too much damage dealt to him by Kez. It's got a much more utilitarian build.
It seems like actually TDK is happier this time around playing the longer game. They're spending so much time focusing vision around this bottom side of the map, but they haven't really been doing much with it. It seems like they're waiting for the Dragon. Kez has not been farming his jungle as much. He's been spending a lot of time just placing wards and trying to keep vision control over that Dragon area. And you could tell Azingi is starting to, he's pulled ahead in experience, he's pulling ahead in farm as well. That's one thing that he does well, is keeping himself in the game even when he's not having as much success on the other map, on the rest of the map as the jungler.
He definitely has a bigger presence than Azingi has this game, and Azingi's incredibly good at keeping himself relevant item-wise. They just don't have too much. Here we go, teleport on in. Here comes Big Old Ron, but Team Dragon Knights have already tried to bail out. Big Old Ron actually way too far forward, and a calling for cover is not going to do much of anything. Indivisible kicked back and taken down by Kez, and just like that, 2 kills picked up by TDK, and would you look at that, it's about Dragon time.
Yeah, that was just 3-2-1, handing that to TDK on a silver platter. Great job to just completely turn that around, though, by the Dragon Knights. You got to hand it to 3-2-1 for trying to make something happen, because that's something that they've struggled with in the past, is making things happen around this stage in the game, especially when they're behind.
They struggle with it again.
But commend their effort, because making those decisions at this stage is bold. They just did not execute it properly. Big Ol' Ron was way ahead of the team. He's not taking enough of decisions in the game to really be able to handle that initial damage before his team can get there.
Yeah, I think the teleport was a little bit late. Could have done that a little bit sooner before they backed off. Now Indivisible's going to get caught out by Nara Kyle right now. Flay's back hook is on. They find Arc second, and this actually might be enough to pick Kyle off. Maybe not. Deathmark has already burned through his health bar. 10-5 on the scoreline now, and an isolated target picked off by Kyle as they now turn their attention and their 3 dragon buffs in the general direction of the Baron Pit.
He was actually being really patient with his death mark. I'm not sure if he wanted to save it.
Or see if he needed to use it.
Yeah, see if he could just kill Indivisible, who was way out of position without using the death mark, but he was not able to.
Seraph, ooh boy. Taking a little bit low there in tower range now. This red buff should get stolen away pretty easily unless Azingi can pop down his smite anytime soon. Flagon drags in, does not have the opportunity. Gets knocked up by the wave for the disengage. Here comes Big Ol' Ron though. TDK a little bit battered and bruised from that exchange. And Big Ol' Ron trying to make a play happen, but he keeps dodging off to the side and letting TDK escape, and they will.
Big Ol' Ron hesitating a little more to just jump into that fight because he's probably a little bit traumatized from what happened last time when he tried to do the same thing. 3-2-1 though, once again, trying to make some moves. They are down 3 dragons to 0 in this, so even though the gold lead's only about 3,500, there's still a lot of gold worth of stats that they're down in this type of situation. So
they need to start grabbing some towers too. This is the same problem they had last game, unable to really do much in the objective department. Mid lane, difficult to push into just because of how much control of that part of the map TDK has established, but they could push up on top and shove in. Problem is now they're giving up ground in the bottom side. TDK is just roaming together better. They grab themselves a blue buff now.
Yeah, they suffocate the map is what they do when they're ahead. And we saw it yesterday in their 2 games. And a lot of this has to do with Kez. Even if you go back to his LCS days when he played for Complexity, even as far back as to the Challenger Series when he played for Cloud9 Tempest, I say it a lot, he's a very control style jungler. He focuses more on vision control than he does on ganks or on farming his jungle. And that really plays well into just how this team works because around this time of the game, they always have so much vision control over the enemy jungle. They just take buff after buff and just deny a lot of vision and a lot of those jungle camps away from their end. That's why a lot of the times when they have a lead, they can close out games fairly well. And I think that's one of the reasons why TDK is a stronger team in the Challenger Series, because that's usually the main problem of Challenger teams, especially in North America, is that they just can't close out games.
Certainly has been 3-2-1's problem in the past, and they don't really have too many games on the books so far this tournament where they've had a solid lead and not been able to close it, but they have taken their time about it, except for in our opening game of today. This time around, they're still on the back foot, though, and the gold lead is still widening for Team Dragon Knights, who once again continue this suffocation tactic on the map. Big wave built up against them in top side. Big ol' Ron sent there to defend it. And they are going to be able to farm up a little bit off of all this, but it just seems like they're getting peanuts. Team Dragon Knight is munching on the meat of the game.
I love watching Aurelia CS under her turret.
Continuous blade surges.
So beautiful. I think Rux had a game in the expansion tournament where there was like 15 creeps in a row that he just went. It sounded like a pinball machine. And just going back and forth to those creeps. It was beautiful. I loved it.
That'll eat through your mana pretty fast, though.
Who cares?
It's worth. 3-2-1. Not really doing much of anything on the map right now, and they still haven't been grabbing that much control of even their own jungle. And this is what's so troubling, is that they're not able to get much back. Ward's cleared out in the TDK jungle by Kyle. Swept away there.
LewisXGG just builds whatever he wants. I really think he just goes to like the recommended item page and literally just buys, or even just the attack damage page, and literally just buys whatever item fits the amount of gold that he has. 1,400 gold, what do I buy? Attack damage page. Brutalizer is the most expensive item that I can buy right now that has attack damage. Buying it. He was playing Callista yesterday, and he literally had like 6 items in his inventory that were all pieces of other items. Like he had a BF sword, he had a Vamp Scepter, he had a recurve bow, and he had like a pickaxe and boots. He just buys whatever he wants at any time. He's got a brutalizer and a pickaxe right now.
I'm just still like looking at it like, what I guess he's going to Yomu's and then a Last Whisper, but he's doing it in 2 parts.
Perhaps.
I bet he's that kind of guy that like when he gets dinner, it's like 3 different courses or whatever, and he finishes like a third of each.
Yeah.
And then he finishes the rest.
Seems like the kind of guy he is. It works out for him.
Oh, Kyle. And Kez. Gonna be caught up just a little bit, but they don't quite have the damage to finish him off. Here comes a Zingy looking for Conquan, now looking for Louis GG, but they're all in the pit with him, and Big ol' Ron joins the fray, but it's a little bit too late. Louis GG taking out almost everybody. It's actually Kyle who's getting the big picks off, but he gets shut down. Arc second staying alive all the same. It is a 2-for-4 trade. Arc second now on to Seraph. Does he have the damage? He does, but here comes Louis GG. Arc second's down. That's the ace, and TDK looking prime position to take yet another dragon.
And once again, in a prime position to take the dragon, but the big deal over the last 2 games for them is that they take these dragons early. 26 minutes into the game, that's going to be their 4th dragon buff. That's a very great timeline. It seems like they always time their fights around when the next dragon spawns. They never overextend or try and pick fights. I guess they didn't really pick that fight, but they were in a position where they looked like they wanted to fight, unless they know that they're going to be able to get something out of it. So once again, they don't increase their gold lead by that much, but another dragon buff under their belt, again, which is an investment. It's going to make it easier for them to win fights as this game progresses. A lot of times it can be more important than gold because it just allows you to siege better, which the downfall of their team right now is that they just don't have much siege potential. And so being able to find fights and objectives around the map that don't involve sieging is a really big victory for them.
What's really weird about this is that 3-2-1 is initiating almost all of these fights. They are trying to be proactive, and as you mentioned, it's kudos to them. They have to try and make a play, otherwise they're just going to get slowly snuffed out. But every single time they try, their execution has been poor, lackluster at best. And TDK, although they lost a lot of members in that fight, were able to turn it around quite effectively. And again, right around the dragon, they grab an objective. They don't just get fights for nothing. The big old Ron is just completely ganged up on. Bubbles on, Deathmark's down, and he's getting popped.
Guess steals the kill. Deathmark was about to proc as well. That's funny. But
that's okay. Kyle's got 5 kills already.
Big ol' Ron's actually been trying to make the best of a bad situation, because when he's picked up kills, he's been a big nuisance in team fights. Conquan taking some damage, but he's going to be just fine here.
And they can start sieging this tower up quite well, and they do have a slightly better siege because of Louis GG, but wait a minute, here comes the all-in. Kyle just goes down, quickly evaporated. They look for Kez as well. Seraph in the back, but he's got his Zanya's on for just a second. Tower is still there, and he gets fired down. And oh my goodness, did they just successfully defend? It looks like they did. Conquan, the only man standing, and Jackstar has acquired a triple kill. A double kill for Louis GG, but he's back to Fountain.
A near ace there, and that's just a little bit too forward by the Dragon Knights. That was a 4v5 fight. Big ol' Ron wasn't even a part of that. He does have teleport available, but no ward to teleport to try and close out this kill. That's a pretty big victory for 3-2-1 in a game where they were losing heavily. Being able to win a fight not only is good for your confidence, but also they're going to be able to get a couple objectives to get themselves back to the game. They have a lot of gold sort of invested in these turrets, which means when you have the turret lead, if you give up a couple of fights, then the other team can come back in that gold count really, really quickly. So just like that, they narrow it down to 2K. You always have to keep in the back of your head, though, the dragons. 4 dragons to 0. That's a lot of stats that aren't accounted for in this gold total. But still, big victory for 3-2-1.
TDK has gone a little bit over aggressive there, and you're right, 3-2-1 really needed that. It breathed some life into them. They have a short moment to rest and just try to get back into the game. They've definitely lost a little bit by not really reacting to this and moving around the map. They've got some vision control back in their own jungle, but again, they seem kind of afraid to venture out of that. And that kind of mentality will burn you against a team like Team Dragon Knights.
Definitely. For sure. And in 3-2-1, it seems like their team fight's actually pretty good. Arc second, really tough to deal with. Seems really confident on Kassadin, which is a champion that the first game was a big catalyst in their victory. He had a quadra kill at one point. No quadra kills have been had this game, but definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of follow-up catch potential if they're able to secure something. Kyle now caught on the line. Divisible takes the opportunity to go on in, and all of a sudden, just like that, they try for something. But look at Seraph in the back, just making them all pay. And no one's died just yet, but as I say it, Azingi gets picked off by Louis GG. A double kill going over to him, and they're just melting through 3-2-1 like butter. Arc second, not going to be alive for much longer. A triple kill for the Corki. And like that, they've taken down 4 for 1. Jackstar, the last man standing, scrambling to get back to base, and TDK should be able to push this into the towers.
And once again, 3-2-1 tries to start a fight, but the person that initiates gets way ahead of this team. And basically, Zingy and Big Oran just left their carries out to dry. Indivisible's too low in the fight to be able to provide successful peel. And when Seraph and Kyle can just get to the back line without much trouble, it just spells bad things for 3-2-1. So again, a valiant effort for them in this stage of the game to try and make something happen, because if they're the ones who get initiated on, it's going to be bad. But once again, it just doesn't do well for them. Now, Dragon is up in 50 seconds, so maybe they're going to try and get some vision, or just maybe even check
This is the first time they've had an opportunity to get vision. I don't think they've had a timer all game. And, well, it's 4 Dragons to 0. And, you know, like I mentioned, TDK, in this series, they have taken 9 unanswered Dragons in a row since Game 2. It's really a gross oversight for 3-2-1 to not even try to get involved in this. As far behind as they've been, they need to do it. And they just like that, they give up the vision control. They just grab because they're afraid of fighting TDK. And it makes sense that they would be at this point, but why even go in there and attempt to? It's a really big mistake they have to correct.
So is a Humus Ghostblade Infinity Edge pieces.
That's what it ended up turning into.
Yeah,
and he's still got another BF sword, by the way.
Yeah, well, now he's approaching full build. So the last item, or one of those last items, is going to be Bloodthirster or Mercurius up there. That's possible. Doesn't really have too much CC.
No, there's really not much that they really have to worry about, actually. But it would be a funny thing to build. There we go.
Oh,
now,
Zingy,
ooh, they smite down Seraph. Last time this happened, it was a bit of a mistake. They find Kez now. Coling is on. Wave is out as well. Jackstar, they've split apart TDK, and now they're diving into the back line, but there's Seraph just causing a lot of havoc. Kez staying alive, not any longer. Conquan still is up as well. Jackstar with a rampage kill, but they've lost Big Ol' Ron and Zingy. They're going to find a bit more here. Double kill for both the AD carries. Jackstar being chased up by Luigi G, and he's down. It's a triple kill for the Corki, and there's the ace once again for Team Dragon Knights.
And it seems to be Deja Vu. 3-2-1 just keeps trying over and over and over again to initiate and find a good fight, but TDK just keeps turning around. It seems to be like the same story every single time. The TDK comp, they have so much disengaged potential with Lee Sin, with Nami, and Seraph is actually doing a lot of work. His score is just not indicative of what he's been able to do. He's basically been keeping the attention of like 2 or 3 members.
The entire backline.
Yeah, he's basically the peel. You're exactly right. He's the peel for his team right now. He roots them, he slows them down, and then he just Zonias, and then it just wastes so much time. You look at what Jackstar does in these fights. He roams around. Seraph takes his attention, and then he Zonias, and it's too risky for Jackstar to move past him to try and get to the backline and ignore that Zonias. But it's also, he's just sitting there doing nothing, waiting for Seraph's cooldowns to come back up. And his score is okay, but he's having so much trouble making an impact in these fights.
Yeah, now Zingy was awkwardly in the Baron pit there, gets pulled to safety by Indivisible. And again, they keep trying to make these plays, but they're backing off at the weirdest times. They did a really good split there on Dragon Knights, but the the Dragon buffs that they've got so much of has really made a big difference there. It seemed if it had been on exactly even footing, maybe the gold lead had been closed up a little bit more. 3-2-1 could have won that fight, but it's just too little, too late, and I feel like Team Dragon Knights is just starting to run away with this game.
Yeah, they have that 5th Dragon buff, of course, doubling all their other bonuses. The biggest one being Tower Destruction Power. They're going to be able to take down these buildings so fast. I mean, look at this inhibitor just absolutely melting. There's just nothing.
No chance to defend it.
Nothing they can do, and at some point when you're 3-2-1, you have to realize maybe we should stop trying to initiate fights because it just has not worked out for them at all. The one fight that they've won in like the past 15 minutes or 20 minutes, actually maybe even in this whole game, was like a reactionary fight where they were just reacting to TDK initiating, which is kind of funny to think about. But
yeah,
they just haven't been able to get to break. Yeah.
Tower's getting sieged down here, but look at this. 3-2-1's taking damage just from the poke behind the collateral damage, not the ability that since there's no graves in this game, but I actually mean that in the literal sense. And here we go. Coling is on, trying to push the wave back. Jackstar, that's pretty much what he's been the best at doing so far, but hasn't quite had the damage. They hook up Kez. They're going to go in on it again. No, they're not. This time Indivisible decides to back away, and that might have saved his life. But the siege continues. Even without the minions, there is that big dragon buff still on TDK's side, they're going to back away from this and actually give up the tower. So 3-2-1 seeding even their own base right now. And what can stop Team Dragon Knights from this push? 2 inhibitors down. They're going to back away, and they're going to move around the side. And 3-2-1's base is in shambles here.
Been really impressed with just TDK's ability to just control games.
Very methodical team. They don't make a large amount of mistakes because they don't give openings to the enemy team, and they have a plan in mind almost all the time. It really is a very strategic mentality rather than an opportunistic one that 3-2-1 tends to employ.
Well, at the same time, they're also really scrappy. They play these team fights so well, and
but they don't always do everything exactly right. There's a little bit of isolation. Kyle, here we go. Now Indivisible is in some trouble. He might just bail himself out, but the big rocket is going to take him out. Big ol' Ron is down as well. And just like that, Louis GG gets himself another triple.
I think that's like this 4th triple kill of the game. He's huge right now. At this point, it doesn't even matter what he builds as his last item. He can really just go to the shop and buy whatever he gets gold for.
This is disaster mode right now for 3-2-1. They've lost 3 members, and they're losing Nexus turrets so incredibly quickly. If they're not careful, they could lose this game really quickly. Conquan, he can't even get to base because Arc Second is just going to blow him up. And there we go. It's only a Zingy and Arc Second. Here we go. That's going to be game. That's number 3, and that is the win number 2. TDK, after being down 1 game, coming on back, making it all the way into the finals, and really looked good in that last set. 10 unanswered dragons, steamrolled through.
Yeah, just really impressive stuff from TDK. They looked shaky in the first game, but it might just have been because of that pick and ban phase, which was a little rough. They gave 3-2-1 pretty much all of their comfort picks, but TDK is such I think they were a surprise team to a lot of people. Not many people knew who they were coming into this. There wasn't as much hype surrounding their roster announcement as there was for other teams that are more at the forefront of the North American Challenger scene. But they've definitely proven over the course of this ESL Pro Series that they are a team to be reckoned with moving forward. They're so scrappy, and in those team fights, there's not even I guess it's coordination as well, but they can make the best of poor situations and make the best of poor initiations, which is really good. So you can see on your screen there the bracket, MSI, TDK, the first team moving on to the finals.
And of course, after that, we'll have to play against the winner of Team Fusion and Monster Kittens. That's coming up in just a little bit, guys. So of course, stay tuned. We'll be on a quick break when we return that second semifinal match. Don't go anywhere. You are watching the ESL Pro Series Season 11 here on ESL TV.